Hello, everybody. We're just taking a moment for more folks to join. Thank you for joining, and we are so excited to be connecting here today. If you can see me and hear me okay, please just give me a thumbs up or just say hello in chat. Hi, Deepthi. Hello, Abhijit. Hi, Brock. And hi, Joe. Good to see you all. I guess no, this is a workshop or a webinar. You may not have your audio or video on, but at all times I'm looking at chat. So any questions, comments, please feel free to put these in chat, and we will be addressing those. Some more folks joining. I'm just putting my bio here for the folks who arrived. Um, I'm assuming you guys can see my screen clearly. Great. Thank you, Prashant. Awesome. We'll just give folks another 1 minute or so. And for the folks who are here, I would love for us to take some time and engage and focus during this session. Enter any questions in chat as you have them. At this point, any comments are also welcome. We will be actively using the chat window. And I just would say there are probably thousands of micro messages that we receive during a day. So our focus is all the more important as we try to receive and then understand, interpret what this is doing for us, what is meant for us. So I truly appreciate you all coming in today. And as we are on, there are more and more folks joining. Um, I would love to get us started here. First of all, thank you again for being here on time. I would love to know where you're joining us from. Put in your name, location. As an example, I am joining here from San Francisco, from the Bay Area, California. Would love to know where you all are joining us here from for today. Brock is in Calgary, Canada. Great. Thank you, Brock. Rajesh is in the Bay Area. Perfect. Prashant is in Phoenix, Arizona. Abhijit is in Seattle, Washington. Great. Dipti is also in the Bay Area. Perfect. Naveen Kumar also in the Bay Area. Great. Great. Joe, I'm assuming you're somewhere in New York. All right. Let's go ahead and review the agenda. We're going to be talking about attributes of a seasoned engineering leader. We will discuss the challenges which are faced by engineering leaders, some strategies to deal with them. I'll share my perspective on tech jobs, not just in the tech industry, but also outside of the tech industry. My work, I'll touch on my work as a tech leadership coach. And lastly, I want to share a framework with you for you to assess your current role and impact in the organization. So I will be more than happy to share the framework, and you can ask me questions as well about the framework during this session. Joe is in Staunton, Virginia. Great, Joe. Um, there are some folks just joining us as I'm speaking. So please feel free to enter a hello and then call out where you're dialing in from, your city and state. As you see, there are a lot of folks here from the West Coast, some from Canada, some from the East Coast. So I would love to see where you're joining us from today. And at all times, use the chat window to ask any questions and also any comments that you may have. Rama is joining us from Bellevue, Washington. Awesome. So a big welcome to you all for making it today. Let's get started. I would love to know a little bit about you, and in that, I'm trying to highly personalize this session, make this session more effective for you. So please take a moment to put in chat. If you're an individual contributor, enter one. If you're a manager who's managing engineers, enter two. If you're any manager, sometimes you may not be a manager of engineers, but you may be managing PMs. That's fine too. If you're a manager, enter two. And if you're a manager of managers, enter three. And I realize that some folks may be, C-suite in the startup, so that's okay. You can enter three for that matter, because down the road you will have people and people underneath those people. Okay, great. Great. This is super helpful, guys. This is very helpful for me to know the kind of work you do and the people or the people structure in your organization. I appreciate you guys engaging and responding. I'm going to dive first into the attributes of a seasoned engineering leader. When you think about an engineering leader, you may have worked for that amazing CTO or for that great SVP of engineering who's been known for the influence, for the impact, both within and outside the organization. These are some of the things that they do really well. They attract and they retain top engineering talent. They're going to be, I call them talent magnets. They'll attract people from their universities. They'll attract from people from the places where they've been, where they've been growing up, and they have a huge network of great people that they bring, and even better, they retain them in the organization. They balance the development needs with the needs of scale, security, and even uptime. So, as an example, it's not just continuing to develop new products or new features. It's also important to build that platform, build the infra in place so that you can scale the systems, so that you can secure your data, secure your users, and also maintain that uptime that most of the applications may deserve or need. 99.97, 99.7, what have you. Integrating acquired companies. Sometimes they need to bring them into their own tech stack. Managing cross functional teams and stakeholder expectations. What that means is you may be working with a chief revenue officer, chief marketing officer, the C suite, the board, the compliance folks. There are so many different stakeholders that you're working with, and you're managing their expectations effectively. The list goes on. Ensuring compliance with privacy and security regulations, because in today's day and age, you may or may not have a CISO, your security officer. You may or may not have a risk and compliance team. So a lot of that responsibility falls on the responsible shoulders of the CTO or the VP of engineering or the head of engineering, and that's how they become more seasoned, because their scope doesn't just stop with their development work or with their code. They're very cross functional in the work that they do. And they also are doing this in a very fast paced, agile environment while meeting the partner or customer expectations. And lastly, while they do all this great work, they have to keep in mind DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion in their engineering organization. And as you think through all these parameters, there's so much more to that role. There is so much nuance in what they do. So I have tried to overly summarize or make this into a concise set of bullets. I'm sure you worked with somebody, or you will always admired an engineering leader that you work with. I would love for you to type in one or two attributes which are your favorite or which you think must be demonstrated by good engineering leaders. So feel free to enter that attribute in chat for us. And if you have to take a moment to think, that's okay. I'm going to also go back to the previous slide just to show you the things which I covered. So if there are other attributes or other qualities which you observed in the engineering leaders that you work with, I would love for you to chat here, to type those in chat. Humility, great. Joe, that's a great one. Dipti, being a talent magnet, establishing the trust in the organization during hard times, especially during hard times. That's where trust is very hard to build, very hard to maintain. Great point, Dipti. Joe, absolutely. If you cannot demonstrate, if you don't have, or if you cannot demonstrate humility, you may not even be a good leader. So that's a good one. Leaders work for their teams, not vice versa. Yes, they have that servant leader mindset, Raj, and that allows them to be there for help, for the services they need to offer, for the guidance, and even roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty every once in a while. Why should other people follow you? A leader should be able to answer that. It's a good one. It's a good one. Um, and in many ways, I have found that when I ask them, who do you follow? That's also when I hear interesting responses. Some of these very senior people may not always follow senior people. They may also follow some early or rising talent because they feel they could learn from anybody and everybody. There's so much evolution happening in the technology world and outside that sometimes there is no limit as to who you could learn from. So that's where I think it's a good question to ask, Abhijit. Why should other people follow you? um, and then a leader should absolutely be able to answer that. It can sometimes tie back to what are their leadership principles or what are their leadership philosophies, and that's what starts to show up when you have that kind of a conversation. Real time feedback, genuinely working to make their reportees succeed. Yes, real time feedback is good. Real time feedback, when given in a way which is digestible to their teams and also actionable, can be helpful. So there is a lot of thinking that one needs to do before they offer the feedback, and sometimes it's about the timing and the delivery which makes all the difference. So yes, feedback is a gift, and genuinely working to make the reportees much better than they were yesterday and much better for tomorrow, they should genuinely be interested in doing that. All great answers, all great answers, thank you. Let's now touch on the challenges faced by engineering leaders. Getting the right support for your technology vision and plans. What happens is that when you try to come up with your technology vision as an engineering leader or engineering manager, what you want is for folks to work with you to understand how this is going to be helping the company, the customers, the partners, the stakeholders, every aspect of the company. And at that point, if it's your CTO that you're reporting into, if it's your CEO, you want them to provide you the right level of support and engagement when it comes to your technology vision and plans for your company. Um, the other challenge that often leaders face is the stakeholder alignment when it comes to meeting their expectations. So, as an example, there might be the CRO who wants a technology stack to be built or some capability to be expanded with the infrastructure so that they could meet their revenue goals 2 quarters out. And they have this huge dependency on the CTO for both development and scale. At the same time, let's take an example. There is a compliance need that has to be met, and the compliance department now wants GDPR or similar expectations to be met in the same time frame. So the pressure all comes down to what can the engineering leader now balance these? How can the engineering leader prioritize these inputs, balance these expectations, and then communicate them so that these stakeholders don't feel misaligned or don't feel that they can trust the engineering leader. That's where a lot of your ability to explain what's going on, explain the constraints along with winning their trust and maintaining their trust. And lastly, then delivering how you reset the plans, delivering on those plans all become critical. And so the challenge there oftentimes is how do you bring so many different stakeholders with different needs in alignment with the engineering organization, which is pretty much serving all these diverse stakeholders with diverse needs at all times. And most or all of them will say this is business critical, this is mission critical. And as you have that powwow, as you have that chaos sometimes in the organization, the fourth one, which is the third one, which is the budget which is needed to hire and retain the best talent. Because no matter where you are, you always want to have the best talent coming and working for you in person, remote, hybrid, what have you. But you want to hire them, retain them. So it's not just about the budget, but also creating that environment, if you will, that the people want to work for this organization. They have a sense of belonging. They feel like they're doing a high quality work, and that their profile is constantly looking fresh because they're working on the latest and greatest of technology or business opportunities and so many other aspects of this company. The recognition and promotion and you. So we are all subjective, like everybody might want this promotion now, but then promotion cannot just be handed on day one or whenever the person feels they are ready. It is a function of first recognizing that there is that talent, recognizing that the talent is delivering as per expectations, recognizing that they're exceeding expectations, and eventually then also promoting them. And so doing that on a consistent basis allows this leader to remind his or her people that they're important, and they have a place which recognizes what their current and future potential is for the company. And lastly, as you do all this, learning and growing is often a challenge because you're running at a 200 miles per hour on the 100 mile per hour freeway. And at that point, it just becomes very challenging to find time for your own self, to intentionally grow, to intentionally invest in yourself. And those are all challenges that the leaders face today, because when you're running in this organization in a fast-paced manner, trying to retain your people, trying to meet stakeholder expectations, trying to execute on the development, on the scale, on the security needs, sometimes your own growth can get compromised. So how do you then take that ownership back and be intentional is one of the challenges that the leaders face. Any other challenges that you folks would like to add in chat beyond these? Like, what do you observe, or what have you seen? Maybe the top engineering challenges. Any comments or questions? Feel free to chime in. Abhijit says growing leaders with high ownership. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Leaders are owners. They need to be able to take ownership sometimes of areas that may not even belong to them. As an example, there may have been a security leader or a CISO, but in the absence of a CISO, or if a CISO leaves, the ownership may come right back to the CTO or to the VP of engineering. So being able to recognize and grow that kind of a talent which can take ownership is critical. And for that leader to identify who in their teams can they then give that expanded role or extended ownership to is also important, because the leader may not always be able to do all that amount of work. So they need to, on an ongoing basis, coach and grow the leaders on their own teams as well. It's a great point. It's a great point. So let's now talk about the strategies to navigate some of these challenges. Um, right now in 2023, we are facing some interesting challenges, and one of my fundamental beliefs is that if you're smart and if you're very talented, if you're a capable engineer, you will always find great opportunities. The way to think about it is, good cooks and good engineers always find amazing opportunities no matter what. When the pandemic happened, everybody thought people are not ordering the food from outside, and what's going to happen to the restaurants and what's going to happen to all the cooks. But eventually cloud kitchen happened. The cooks were still cooking. Maybe the place changed for them, but the demand did not go down. They readjusted themselves to the new ways of serving the crowd, serving the demand, and things just took off from there, and everything else is history. So similarly, there may be this period of time right now where there is some amount of pressure or stress, macroeconomic factors, different technological innovations, what have you. But once again, if you are an engineering leader who can continue to invest in yourself, focus and grow, you will always have better opportunities waiting for you. You may have to go through transitions, but you will always have better opportunities waiting for you. And one of the approaches there is to cultivate the right relationships within and outside the organization. Many engineers and engineering leaders whom I work with, I have found them to be introverted. I have found them that they would rather make sure things are running perfectly than go out and network with people, or they are of the belief system that if I do great work, the work should speak for itself. While that's true, you still need to be able to go out there and network and build the right relationships. And over the long term, these become very important. So think about these not as transactional, like applying for a job or just calling somebody when you need a job. It's about building genuine relationships, and actually taking the time to reflect within as to who are the quality people who you could learn from, who you could add value to, because networking or building relationships is not just a one-way thing. It's about adding value to the people you know and to the people that you connect with. The second thing is being patient about your plans to hire and expand. So many CTOs can get ahead of themselves. Many directors of engineering can get ahead of themselves and feel like their plans are not being heard. They are not getting the budget. They are not getting the required support. But oftentimes, the number one skill that is lacking in them is the ability to persuade their leadership as to why their plans are important and that they must be funded. The strategy there, the technique there, is for you to first understand and align yourself with your organizational goals. As an example, if your CEO or CMO has a goal to expand internationally and grow more market share, as an example, grow 50% more user base in 2025, then that's something that you can take a look at and first align yourself with. Understand how you and your engineering organization can actually help that C suite meet that goal, and then align yourself and your plan to that goal. Once you have that approach in mind, you will automatically start to articulate those in your own plans for the technology organization and for the technology investments. So it's not just about taking your plan and saying, please approve this. It's about understanding how your plan is catering to the overall OKRs or to the metrics of the organization. If you're in a large company, sometimes those OKRs and metrics are clear. As an example, when I'm working with my clients at PayPal or Meta or Google, their OKRs are very clear. They clearly understand what the CTO or C-suite is responsible, what part of the OKR is being owned by the VP engineering, what part of the OKR is owned by several director and engineering folks and underneath their team, what are they responsible for. But sometimes that clarity is not there, particularly in mid-sized organizations, unicorn startups, and sometimes even in large companies, where you as a leader have to take that ownership that we just talked about, or extreme ownership in this case, and ask the right questions about what OKRs are me and my team responsible for. I understand what I'm doing now, but I don't have that clarity for 1, 2, 3 years out. It's okay for you to ask the questions. It's okay for you to take the ownership, and sometimes even um, recognize that there is an ambiguity in the situation or in the environment and nail it when possible. When you approach it that way, when you're out there to serve, be of service to your organization, when there is ambiguity, you will automatically start to see others coming and asking you about what is your plan, what's your approach. And that's the right time to ask for funding or ask for alignment with the others in the organization. The third thing, which I would point here, is that if you really want to be in that engineering leadership role, you want to constantly invest in yourself. And what that means is you have to learn and grow on an ongoing basis. You don't just do this because there's something wrong with the macroeconomic factors, or if everybody else is going through a tough time, you think now is the time to do it. Don't do it as a reaction. Be proactive. Take ownership. Be proactive about your career and constantly learn and grow in the areas which will help you be smarter than what you are. So 1 year, 3 year, 5 year out, your goals should support your learning and development on an ongoing basis as an engineer, as an engineering manager, and whatever that is that you have for yourself. You want to constantly see yourself grow. And if you can enjoy that process, not doing it just because you're coming under pressure or under stress, if you can enjoy that process, that can be a very good investment in your own self. And if you don't invest in yourself, nobody else will. That's the number one thing you want to remember. So if you feel you're worthy of investing in your own self, that's a good signal to tell yourself, I'm ready for growth and I'm going to do that on an ongoing basis. The one thing I want to talk to you about is also how do you assess the impact that you're having both within the organization and outside. So in the upcoming slides, we're going to start to talk about a tool and a framework. I would love for you guys to do a little exercise for us here, and I'm so curious to know the results. And the most important thing to keep in mind is that this framework is being built so that we understand your impact both within and outside the organization. And lastly, that tool, which is basically the ELI worksheet or the ELI tool, the engineering leadership impact tool. It is something that I have built so that you can see your ongoing improvement in there. If you start to manage that data or manage that worksheet on a monthly basis, it'll show you how you're growing your own knowledge, your own impact, your own influence as an engineering leader, engineering manager, engineering VP, no matter what role or what um, title you are holding in your organization. These are some of my client reviews that I would love to share with you. Let's take an example of John David Ruvini. He's somebody who started working with me years ago when he was a director at eBay, a director of engineering at eBay, and he was running teams and he was doing a great job there. He came across some challenges where my coaching did have a positive impact on his career and on his teams. And I was so delighted. I continue to work with him. From eBay, he had a chance to transition over to Meta, where he's head of AI. And we continue to work together on so many important and strategic areas, both for his career within the company and outside, both for his impact within the company and outside. Let's take the example of Joginder Singh. I engaged with him a few years ago when he wanted some help for being an effective leader in his organization. I had the opportunity to work with him, and he very quickly ramped up on some very critical areas. He recently also moved to JP Morgan Chase, heading up an entire engineering organization. And that those are the examples I would love for you to go take a look at. You can visit my website, and the URL is mentioned here in the window. And I would love for you to take a look at these stories of these individuals who worked with me in the past. I would love to remind you guys one more time that tech professionals will always be in demand. Sometimes the companies choose to invest less, sometimes they invest more in resources. But as far as you're concerned, I want you to know that if you decide to invest in yourself, there's no stopping for you. You will continue to thrive because there's more and more work, more and more advanced work for high tech workers. As an example, yes, there is an exodus of people from the tech industry, but I've seen that that talent is finding itself a role in the healthcare, education, finance, and biotech industries because these industries continue to have a shortage of tech workers. And I've seen that these other industries are now starting to attract these tech leaders and tech talent all the more. Also, according to an analysis by Revelio, it's basically a workforce data provider, 72% of the people who were laid off found new jobs within 3 months of being laid off. And surprisingly, some of them got are making more money than their previous jobs. So over half of them are making more money than what their previous job paid them. And as of right now, there are 420,000 open jobs for software people on Indeed just within the US. So my point is there's always demand. If it's not in the tech industry, it's elsewhere. So as long as you can stay up to date, as long as you can invest in yourself, you will always find bigger, better, bolder opportunities to take your career, to take your life to the next level. Any questions or comments on this slide or any other observations so far before we move into the framework and the exercise? So Naveen Kumar has a great question. Can you talk a little bit more about cultivating relationships outside the organization? Sure. So Naveen, the one thing to keep in mind is um, I will basically give you some tips broadly on networking. So what you want to do is connect and meet with people, both who are doing a similar line of work as you are, but also doing work which is in different industries. As an example, in manufacturing or mining, oil and gas, finance. So they may be folks in engineering, sometimes they may not be. Sometimes they may be on the data side, sometimes they may be actually in the hardware or the manufacturing side. And it's okay for you to meet a diverse set of people, a diverse set of thinkers just to genuinely understand the type of work they do, and it helps you connect with people in a very unique way and gather perspectives. The second thing I would encourage you to do is to build a relationship so that you can add value. Most people think that how do I get value, and that's absolutely the wrong way to build relationships. Your number one approach should be how can I help somebody, how can I add value to somebody, how can I be of help so that I can change somebody's life or whatever it is they're doing at the moment. And if you have that approach, That's a very good way to genuinely build your network. The third thing I would say is that what you want to do is also go and attend seminars, attend conferences where a lot of knowledge is being shared. That knowledge may not necessarily be just about tech, but that could be about an industry that is fast evolving. As an example, you could go and attend seminars on biotech, on healthcare, on manufacturing, what have you. So just to be able to go to those conferences also allows you to build your network outside of your own company. And it's okay because you're not out there to meet 1,000 people. If there are 1,000 people in a seminar, it comes down to quality. It comes down to who do you meet and how can you connect with them, how do you relate with them, and lastly, how can you add value to them. So those are some thoughts I would give you as far as your cultivating, building a network and cultivating those relationships is concerned. Thank you. Glad to know it's helpful, Naveen. Any other comments or questions so far, either on this slide or any data that I've shared so far? So this is where we're going to talk about the framework. We just pasted the link here in the chat. I would love for you guys now to download this sheet and take a look at it. I'm here to answer any questions as you begin to use this framework. This is a framework that I've developed keeping in mind both the attributes and the behaviors I would want you to demonstrate within the organization and then outside the organization. This this worksheet truly gives you a red, yellow, green indicator on where you are in terms of your own assessment, where you are, where do you stand today. And if you could do this right now, that's fine, but at least I want you to take a look at it and ask me any questions about the attributes which are covered in this sheet. So once again, the link is here in the chat. maheshamthakur.com/eli framework, eli hyphen framework. That's a worksheet. If anybody can just give me a thumbs up as it's if it's working, if you can download it, just give me a hello or a thumbs up, whatever is easy for you, so I know it's working for you guys. Thank you, Dipti. Perfect, Rajesh. So I'm going to let you guys download and open that sheet and spend a few minutes just looking at the sheet and asking me questions about this worksheet. Yes, Abhijit, the sample values are pre-filled, but you can totally, good question, good observation. The sample values are pre-filled, but you can totally override them. Um, Let me now tell you how this works is you basically have the top section, which is measuring your internal org effectiveness, and the bottom section, which is measuring your influence and impact, mostly outside the organization. It's inside and outside both. The top one is something that tells us that you are a very effective manager. The bottom one tells us that you are starting to perform as a leader and you're moving or are currently in the C suite. There is no good or bad at this point. So what I want you to do is just take a moment and then type in the values for January, since we are still here. So I would love for you to type. You can either enter a 0 or a 1, if you will, and then that's basically what you're allowed. So the drop down. So pick a 0 or 1, and you will automatically see it add up the numbers, and you will start to see if you're yellow, green, or red on the internal org effectiveness. So I'll basically let you guys take 1 to 2 minutes now to do the internal org effectiveness um, assessment for yourself. And once again, for the folks who are still wanting to download, go to my website, maheshmthakur.com/eli, effective leadership impact, eli hyphen framework. maheshmthakur.com/eli hyphen framework. That's the worksheet that we are discussing here to assess your impact as an engineering leader. I would love for you to download the sheet and try entering either 0 or 1 for the questions that we're talking about. Any questions or comments so far on the sheet? Is anything, if anything is unclear, or if you have any other observations, let me know. For whoever has had the chance to fill at least the top section for the month of Jan, enter a one for me in the chat. Prashant, Raj, I'm hoping you can still fill the sheet. Feel free to put in one in your comment box if you completed the sheet. If not, it's okay. Take your time. Great. Good to know, Abhijit. Good job, Rajesh. So something to keep in mind about this sheet is that I have worked with several engineering leaders, and these are across different organizations. These engineering leaders are part of Meta, Uber, Microsoft, unicorn startups. What I have done is I've carefully analyzed how these folks are performing, how these folks are expected to perform, and what are the expectations of their own teams, of their own leaders and managers whom they manage. How is it that they're expecting them to perform? And more importantly, how are they measuring or assessing performance across these various organizations? Because every organization has a different or a unique way to analyze, to assess, and to reward for high performance. So I've put several of those factors into consideration while designing this framework. I've looked at several aspects of what makes high performing CTOs successful and how do they go about building and sustaining a high performance team in their organization. So that's how I had to carefully select. The range of attributes is a huge list. I had to carefully select what was most important, and I also tried to avoid the duplicates. And I tried to bring it together in a way where no matter where you are, you could be a VP today, you could be a director, you could be an aspiring VP, you could be a director. This becomes relevant because it not only gives you an assessment of what you're doing within the company, but it also asks you questions which help you understand what you may be or may not be doing outside the organization. The questions are structured so that it gives you a true assessment of where you are. And if you understand that framework and if you can go back to it and keep doing it every month, you can clearly see how you go from left to right, how you go to the top and to the right in terms of improving your own performance as an engineering leader, as a current or an aspiring engineering leader in your organization. Great to know Naveen also committed. Awesome. Good job, guys. I would love to now um, request you guys, suggest you guys to set up a discovery call. If you found the sheet helpful, I would love for you guys to share your results. This is a link here. What I would love to know is what did your results look like, whether it was whether you got a yellow or a red or a green, and also how do you plan to use the sheet forward. You can use the discovery call to also ask any top of mind questions that you have for me. And at any point, I'm open to having a conversation no matter what. So feel free to grab the link in the chat and set up the time that you would like with me. I'm very curious to see your results and how useful the sheet has been. I will now take this time to answer any questions that you may have. At this point, continue to use the chat window to type your top of mind questions. Once again, the link to connect with me is in chat. And I would love to know any observations or questions that you had so far in terms of the attributes on the sheet or even from the topics that we discussed earlier in this workshop. One thing to also keep in mind, I think I got a question here, which is about the methodology for. So I privately got a question to talk about the methodology for growth, especially during these times. So I'm going to bring us back to the same concept that yes, these are some very interesting times. These are times where the macroeconomic factors are changing. These are times where we call this the transition phase, where the economy is going through its own cycles, but it always comes back with a strong recovery. So if you do not get too blindsided by the news headlines, if you just try to not think about the negativity, the negative press all the time, and remain focused on what your goals are and remain focused in continuing to invest your time, your resources into your own development and into the betterment of your team, you will come out stronger. Yes, we hear news about company X letting go 12,000 employees overnight, but that same company X had hired over 40 or 50,000 people three years ago. So yes, these are cycles that we are all a part of. But then one thing that remains constant is your belief in your own skills and your never-ending ability to invest in your own self. If you say stay focused there, you're going to come out stronger. And as I mentioned earlier, there are hundreds of thousands of tech opportunities open at the moment that you could look at. They may not be in the tech industry, but they may be outside the tech industry. Even within the tech industry, they are hiring, we are hiring. So you could continue to look at those, and those factors will always be there. The economic cycles always go through a shift. You continue to focus on your own growth and development, and you will emerge stronger. And like I said before, good cooks and good engineers always end up with great opportunities. Rajesh has a good question. What is the weightage of each item listed in the sheet? At this point, most of them are equally weighted, and I wanted to overly simplify the sheet by giving it equal weightage. However, there are some which I consider a holy grail. As an example, the first one, which says, are you aligned with the metrics in your organization? Are you aligned with the company metrics? That's like a holy grail. If you said zero on that, I would like us all to make sure we are aligned, because as an engineering leader or a senior IC in a company, or as an architect or a principal architect, if you're not aligned to the company goals, that's a much bigger problem. But other than that, they're all equal weightage, and you could pretty much use it to enter data and then look at where you stand in terms of the whether you are red or yellow, neutral or green. And ideally, you want to strive towards getting to green. And if you're aspiring to be a VP of technology or VP architect or a CTO down the road, you pretty much want both of them to start to look green either now or 1 or 2 years out. The folks which I mentioned in the previous slides who worked with me, they didn't have everything green going for them. And it was a period of time. It was quarters and quarters of work, which we did, working with their stakeholders, working with their leadership, working with their teams, helping them with their org scores, helping them build a brand outside the company, including but not limited to board seats and speaking opportunities, which allowed the time and the effort to make that huge impact, that huge leap in their lives and careers. So it does take time, but at least you got to know where you stand today. You got to have a true assessment. And at this point, please use radical candor when you're entering data in the sheet. Do not try to shy away from entering a zero if it's a zero today. You cannot be kidding yourself in this one. Just be brutally honest with yourself. And that candor, that radical candor will help you, because if you can truly assess yourself where you are, only then you can help yourself to get better in the period going forward. Good questions there. Great. Any other questions before we log off for today? Any other final questions, comments? Please feel free to type. Awesome. Thank you all for your time and for your engagement today. I appreciate you guys asking the right questions with your responses. And as mentioned, please feel free to reach out with the answers that you have over the discovery call with me. I would love to go deeper and help you out in any way I can. Thank you so much.